Major funding for these programs is made possible by grants from Capital One Bank, New York Community Bank, Eastern Consolidated, M&T Bank, Customers Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Terra CRG, the Wickoff Group, Perfect Building Maintenance, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Commercial Mortgage Lending, Genova Burns. Additional support is made possible by AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, AmTrust Title, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Connect One Bank, Colliers International NYC, Collins Building Services, CPEX Real Estate Services, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Fisher Brothers, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Hendler Real Estate Organization, Hersha Hospitality, HAP, Investment Developers, Hodges Ward Elliott, Inc., Investors Bank, iFunding, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Madison Realty Capital, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, New Banks, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Pulcinelli, Rosewood Realty Services, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, The Continuum Company, the Knackle Group at Cushman and Wakefield, the Meringoff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Group, and these friends.
New York City, it's the home of media and entertainment. People come here from around the world. Movies are filmed here. TV shows are filmed here. Digital media is filmed here. So today I've assembled, with the help of my friend Alan Suna, a.k.a. the executive producer, a group of individuals to talk about what's happening in the media and entertainment in the studios, otherwise known as Made in New York City. My guests they include the Commissioner of Media and Entertainment for the City of New York, Julie Menin, the President and CEO of Kaufman Astoria Studios, Hal Rosenbluth, and last but not least, my executive producer, my buddy, the CEO of Silvercup Studios and the principal at Silvercup Properties, Alan Suna. So, Commissioner, how do you like being the commissioner of this vibrant business in the city of New York?
It's wonderful. Media and entertainment is thriving in New York City, so I'm thrilled to be the commissioner. The mayor asked me to take on this new role in February, and he added to our portfolio for the first time music, advertising, and digital content. So now we're really cutting across all different media platforms, and you have one agency that's representing all those different portfolios.
But these people are very important. They're a large component of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And business is thriving for them, which we are thrilled about as well.
I mean, Alan, you just opened up 2 new studios up in the Bronx.
So it's one facility up in the Bronx that has the capacity to handle 2 good-sized productions at a time. We have a new show in there from Warner Brothers studio that's going to be on ABC, a show called Time After Time. And I think just yesterday we started something Hal used to do a lot of, and we used to do a lot of, but a new Woody Allen movie that just started.
So your studios are, in addition to television, you're both television and movies, correct?
Yes.
Yes, though television is probably the most predominant use.
Television is the predominant use. I think the studios are a reflection of what the marketplace is. Right now we have, Julia, is it over 50 scripted shows?
52 episodic TV shows. So we're up 15% just in the last year alone on the TV
Right,
side.
and if we go back to 2004, 2007, we're up like 500%, 700, 600% in the number.
It's explosive growth, both on TV and on film. On film, we're up to 336 films. So you've really seen incredible growth in both the TV and the film business in New York City.
And for what the television industry really gives us is similar to what happened in Los Angeles. It gives you a foundation of the business because the television shows, the scripted shows, give you an ability for extended life, for a longer term job growth because of the episodes, the 12, 22 episode shows. A feature film has a beginning and an end, definitive. So it gives you a foundation of employment and activity within the facilities that the features really can't give you. Yet at the same time, the features mix in with us as availability happens within the stages in New York.
And the features, both the feature TV and the films, are producing additional jobs and helping the diversity, right?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, if you look at the film and TV side, it's 130,000 jobs in New York City. Now, if you look at all of our media sectors, so including publishing, theater, music, it's 385,000 jobs for New Yorkers. That's more, I might add, than finance and insurance in New York City. So you're really seeing the diversification of the media economy here in New York City, and that's great for New York.
One of the great parts about our industry is it continues to work even in bad economic times. So if you look at the most recent recession,
so you're saying the 2008 recession really didn't have that much?
That's right. The unions that supply the stage and theatrical employees were growing. They were adding new members. And I think other than healthcare, probably the only group that was doing it in the state. And at the same time, Kaufman and Silvercup and the other facilities were growing. We're expanding both in their lighting departments as well as the physical plants of new stages. We opened a new stage in 2010, so we were under construction during that same recessionary period.
Now, you recently opened up a new stage also, right?
In 2010, we opened up an 18,000-foot stage, and we hope to break ground in December for 2 more stages.
And let's talk about what you did in the Bronx. I mean, people at one time said the Bronx was burning, but the Bronx is growing and moving.
Bronx is the land of opportunity in New York City. Everybody ran with the money to Brooklyn, after Manhattan, and they run to my world in Western Queens. But the Bronx has got great transportation. It's accessible by vehicles, which means more than cars, the trucks and what have you. And we see the Bronx as a great opportunity for New York. And there's also a good pool of people. We're hiring people from, local people from the Bronx to work in our facility. And we think the Bronx is terrific.
Now, you also, through the city programs, wouldn't you be getting REAP benefits for your employees for the Bronx?
No, because we don't employ the people that work on these productions. Okay?
Oh,
you see?
Right, exactly.
The employees belong to the individual studios that are producing these things.
So the employees work for the studios, and they're union members of the studios.
They're union members that Warner Brothers or Sony or Netflix or Lionsgate hires to work on the project.
Let's talk about the tax credits. The tax credits are very important, as you were saying to me, to the studios.
Mm-hmm. To me, it is the single most important marketing tool that's been given to an industry in the state. We've been able to take New York from the most expensive place to shoot and narrow that gap to allow productions to take advantage of what New York has to offer.
Now, how big are these incentives?
Well, it's a 30% tax credit, and it's incredibly important. It makes us very competitive in terms of New York State, but it really goes beyond that. On the city side, and the tax credit is a state tax credit, what the city does is we have our Made in New York credit, where for qualified productions where 75% of the production is done in New York, they can use our iconic Made in New York logo, and in return we give free bus ads, subway ads. We really put marketing muscle from the city behind those productions. But I do also want to say, and what's so exciting about the expansion in the outer boroughs of the studios, is we're really trying to increase production on the permitting side in the outer boroughs. So our agency permits 12,000 productions a year. We're really trying to change the dynamic of it and increase many of those permits in the Bronx, in Staten Island, in Queens, in Brooklyn, because right now 50% of the permits are happening in Manhattan. So the more that we can do to be supportive of the outer boroughs and production in the outer boroughs, we're, for example, on our website increasing our location library so that we make it easy for location scouts to see all the assets and gems that we have in the outer boroughs.
I'm going to interrupt 1 second, though.
Sure.
And Julie's a dear friend, but I'm going to have to help her to do that in a certain way. We don't call them outer boroughs anymore. They're the other boroughs. Okay? And, albeit that we're in Manhattan right now and you live in Manhattan, I think it's a really important distinction to be made. And I think that also, just for clarity's sake, the state tax credit, which is really driving the bus here, is not 30% of everything. It is only 30% of what they call the below-the-line expenses. So if you were to average it all out, it comes out to about 15% of the cost of a production. It doesn't give you a credit for a director or an actor or a writer or what have you.
But let's look at what Julie said and what everyone else is talking. The hotels are being occupied. The food, the restaurants are being occupied.
Right.
It's creating a great opportunity, for the city of New York. It's employing a lot of additional people. It's, as you said, 334,000 or something like that. It's movement. But I do believe, getting on your point, it is the outer boroughs. Okay, the opportunity that many times, with before Silvercup, I'm not sure how many things were filmed up in the Bronx, but now you have a true production facility in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. I mean, Kaufman's has been around since 1920 originally, with out of Zucker. You told a cute story about that in Fort Lee.
Well, there was a question asked in the green room as to production used to be in Fort Lee, and the answer is yes. In fact, the Queens Chamber of Commerce gave us a copy of an interview they did with Adolf Zucker back in 1920. And in it, his sales pitch is the same sales pitch I give productions now about coming to Queens. But one of the things he said was Fort Lee did have a lot of activity, but the George Washington Bridge didn't exist. The 59th Street Bridge existed back then. So it was a lot easier to get to Queens than it was to get to Fort Lee. So just sheer ease of transportation was a big selling factor to come out to Astoria.
With regard to that, when people come for media productions over here, how do they make the determination where they're going to go? There's Steiner in Brooklyn, there are other small studios, there's 2 Kaufman and Silvercup in Queens, now there's Silvercup up in the Bronx. How is it based on the size of the facility, or is it based on incentives? Is it based on employment?
I mean, I think, and I also leave it to Alan and how to weigh in here, but it's a multitude of different factors. I mean, some of it is locational. I mean, one of the things that to me is incredibly exciting to hear people who do work both in New York and in LA say is there is simply no locations like we have in New York, the iconic neighborhoods, so that if shots need to be held on the streets outside of the studios, we have it. We really have it all. The other interesting thing, and I always like to say this because I think people are not so aware of this, is we are actually the only city that has a dedicated police unit for film and TV. Why is that important? It's incredibly important because it really minimizes any kind of community complaints. And if you look at community complaints, there are 1 million calls a month to 311 on a multitude of different issues. Approximately only 100 of those are complaints about filming. And I really attribute that to the fact that we have a great NYPD unit. We all work very, very hard to try to minimize any kind of community complaints.
And let me just add one more thing. Having that gives the productions a real sense of security when they are out on location. And we do a show with Jennifer Lopez. You're talking about a superstar that attracts everyone to that location. So having the NYPD as part of the security for the production gives them a sense of comfort, as well as helping in dealing with any interference to the
Is there
neighborhood.
an additional charge to the...
There is not. No, there is not.
So there's no private security charge. This is part of... Especially they're getting this, I hate to say for free, all-inclusive for the opportunity of working in the city of New York?
There's not an additional charge for it, but it's also incredibly important because, again, it does minimize any kind of community complaint, security issue that can occur. And if you look at what film and TV brings to New York City on the economic side, it is a $9 billion industry for the city of New York.
Now, a report was done in October by I think, Boston Consulting Group for the media and entertainment business, mentioning, and as you can see today, Amazon has their own movie productions, Netflix has it, Hulu has their production. These productions are coming there, and the producers, or are these companies like Amazon and Netflix and
You're bringing up a really good point, Mike, and that is, if you just want to roll back a moment to talking about the number of productions that are here, the number of scripted productions has increased, but it doesn't necessarily, and there has been an increase in what I'm about to say, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it increased in a straight line in terms of the amount of production days, because what's happened with these, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, Showtime, you name it, they are on a different schedule than the classic broadcast networks. Broadcast networks typically were cranking out about 22 episodes a year. Okay, these are between 8 and 12 episodes a year. So we have more in terms of the number, okay, but they are, how that manages out is a different story. But the important thing is that the landscape is changing. We're doing business now with Netflix, with Amazon, with Showtime, with ABC, Warner Brothers. The mix is changing tremendously, and even the more classic studios are changing the way in which they're producing things, and it may be on one of their cable networks or what have you.
So how do we compete? Vancouver was once a big location.
Still is.
I think Detroit was another one. How do we compete and get these shows as opposed to maybe incentives that other states are offering and lower expenses?
Well, we do compete, I think, in large part because, obviously the incentive is a very important part of the equation.
But there are incentives, but
they have incentives too.
We'll address that in a second.
But it's also, again, the iconic locations, the dedicated NYPD unit. You can't minimize the effect that the Office of Media and Entertainment has as well. We're a one-stop shopping permitting. You go film in Atlanta, you're dealing with the Parks Department, the Transportation Department, their Film Department. We're one-stop shop permitting. So it's that ease that we try to create for productions in New York.
But let's talk about...
But New York doesn't have to be the cheapest place.
I didn't say the cheapest.
No, but and in a way, that's how we are very, very competitive. We need to remain a great place to live, work, and capture on film. And as long as we can do that and offer the talent that is here, when we talk about 52 scripted shows and 300 films, that means we're putting out first-team technical crew that can handle all of this. You're not going to get that in any other place, maybe except Los Angeles, in order to be able to handle the shows. The facilities, the first-class facilities of Silvercup and Kaufman and the others that are in New York. The talent that's here, the amount of choice that a producer has for even one line to choose from, the talent that's here to do Broadway or other is just not comparable anywhere else. So what we did, what the tax credit did, and we'll circle back to that, is it took us from being this much more costly to this much more costly, and we realized that producers were willing to pay a premium to take advantage of what New York had to offer.
Also, the performers. No offense. How many people want to be in Michigan and Detroit? There are different communities. They want to. Many of them live here. Their families are over here.
Right. When you're doing television shows and you have a 13 or 22 episode grind, you want to be able to go home. You don't want to go to Detroit or to Georgia unless that's your home.
A couple of observations allow me to make. Number one is that Michigan doesn't offer the tax credit anymore. Why? It wasn't a smart tax credit. They gave away too much money. New York's tax credit is almost laser-like in the way in which it creates the credit. They were giving a 40% of everything, and it just they wasn't doing it. But New York, with all of our extra things that Julie is talking about and Hal is talking about, unless we have that tax credit, all right, the business is going to go elsewhere. And so I don't want to lose that point, because there are those that say, well, you've got all this now, you've primed the pump, you've done it. And we haven't, because these are the most mobile people that you've ever encountered. They will pick up and move, and they are chasing dollars. but they also, to your point, Mike, you talked earlier about hotels. Well, yeah, okay, hotels are doing a little better, but what's more interesting are people that were previously living in California and have chosen to make their homes here in New York. Ben Stiller just bought a new place down in Greenwich Village. Tina Fey lives up on West End Avenue and 74th Street, along with a bunch of other very talented people. All right, people want to live here in New York, and for all the reasons that my two friends here have talked about. But the tax credit combined with that allows us to thrive.
I mean, I can't emphasize enough of what Alan is talking about. We are star-driven. And before the tax credit was in existence, the cost of New York was allowing that argument in the CEO's office between the accountant and the creative people to allow the accountant to win. Right. The tax credit is allowing the creative people to win and say, this is where we need to be to shoot this project.
And I also think we can't minimize the incredible, rich, diverse talent pool we have here in New York. The workforce we have in New York is unparalleled, bar none. And again, I think that's another incredibly attractive reason why people are coming to New York. We're very focused at the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment on increasing diversity. In fact, just today, this morning, we announced an initiative with the Writers Guild where we are having well-known showrunners like Beau Willimon from House of Cards, who's going to be providing one-on-one mentorship to young, diverse writers. We're going to be training over 500 young writers, and this is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to increase the talent pool and give them direct one-to-one feedback on their work.
Where do you see this industry in the next 5 years in the New York market? Where do we see expansion of studios?
We really believe in the New York market. Obviously, we're about to break ground on more stages and office space to fill out the balance of Kaufman Astoria studios. We think so long as the tax, as I said, as long as the tax credit remains, as long as it's a great place to live, work, and capture on film, that talent pool that Julie's talking about will be able to be here and be employed. More and more people, our decision makers, as Alan referred to, are going to move back to New York and will be able to keep the industry sustainable.
But as Alan was saying earlier, the outer boroughs, the other boroughs, okay, we have limited land in different markets, okay? At one time, the boom of Long Island City over the last couple of years has taken away the opportunities of space where you can build. The Bronx is doing better, and there'll be other potential studios or production in the Bronx. The market that you could look at it as a possibility, just looking at the landscape, is Staten Island, which has larger proximity of large pieces of land, and also the sections of, let's say, East New York and Brownsville, where there is an opportunity.
Well, let me address that for a minute. So Staten Island is very interesting. You have Broadway stages going in there with their expansion. One of the things the city of New York is doing, and one of the reasons why the mayor asked that real estate be added to our agency's portfolio as it relates to the creative industries, is because we're actively looking at our city-owned assets, at our piers, at our armories, at other city assets that the city owns to see how can we better support this industry. One of the things that we're constantly hearing is a need for shared workspace, tech hubs. There are many needs that film and TV have, and so we're actively looking at city-owned sites to see how we can best support the industry and really build for the future.
So, do you see city-owned sites like the piers or other things for potential development?
Absolutely. I mean, we're looking at all options.
Okay. Would those city-owned piers or the other city-owned properties potentially be leased to companies like Kaufman at the Silvercup?
We're very interested in working with people who are already on the ground having success in these industries. What we want to do is be as supportive to the industries as we possibly can, and the city's in a unique position with the assets that we own to really help to best position economic growth for the future.
Would you be interested in that type of opportunity?
I got to roll back in time again. I'm sorry, Mike. That's what happens when you get as old as me. But when this tax credit and stuff, it came about, we had certain issues with the state because the state had armories and all kinds of other stuff. And in fact, what they were doing was disincentivizing people such as Hal or myself to go in and invest and build new facilities because they were giving away these armories basically for free. And so we can't be in a position to compete with government. It's really very, very hard to do. If there are opportunities for development,
But you can
then
work
that's a
with
diff-
them, right?
Yes, it's a different kind
Which
of
is
story.
basically what happened, with the Brooklyn Navy Yard, where, the Steiner Studios was created on property that was owned by
Yeah,
the city.
that's correct. Well, a house
Kaufman
property
Astoria
is
is
owned by the city.
The
Right.
city is my landlord.
Right,
Right.
so you're under a land lease with the city.
That's
of New
right.
York.
Right.
How many years on the land lease?
99.
99 left?
No, 99 we started with.
In today's market, since everybody wants to know about the new season of TVs coming out, what new productions are coming out both in television and in movies at your different studios?
We've been very blessed, and a lot of our shows have been successful. We are doing season 5 of Orange is the New Black right now. We're shooting that. We're shooting season 2 of Shades of Blue, the Jennifer Lopez show for NBC. We're shooting The Affair, which I think is in year 3. So, there's always a desire for new shows to come in, and there's always a degree of turnover. We ran Nurse Jackie for 7 years, and its show came to an end, and Shades of Blue came in and replaced them in the studio.
Alan?
We are continuing, I guess, with Madam Secretary, which is probably in season 3 or 4 right now. Elementary, which is probably in season 5. We are doing a new show for Amazon called Z. It's for Zelda, who was the wife of F. Scott Fitzgerald. It's a period piece. We have a new show for Netflix called Friends from College. Other than the title, I do not know what it's about. We're doing a lovely show. It's in its 3rd season now, called Younger. About a woman, who basically was having trouble getting hired, as a 40-year-old. So she remade herself up to be a late 20s person, And what else we have going on? Girls is finishing its 5th season now.
Another question. One of the items I remember, that was always created, was originally with Universal Studios, was the studio tours. Do we have that? People come to New York to go to Broadway. People save their money to come to the theater, and that's why the theater's done so well. Do we have studio opportunities? Can people take tours of the studios?
It's very difficult when productions are on our stages. It is theirs. A lot of it is secretive because they don't want the storylines to get out. In its place, we at the studio have the Museum of the Moving Image, which shows you how the moving image is created, and it has many pieces of shows that were done at Silvercup, at Kaufman, and other places in New York. So you can see it in that way.
But you also have a restaurant now, you said.
We do. We have a restaurant that's open to the public. It was the commissary for the original studio back in the 20s. We have pictures of Rudolph Valentino and others eating down there. So it makes a kind of a neat perspective when you go down and eat.
And you also have a movie theater right nearby, right?
Well, what we have is we use the studio to anchor a reinvigoration of a neighborhood. As we're part of a residential neighborhood, we're not in an industrial neighborhood. So we have a movie theater, we have lots of restaurants in the area, we have the museum, we have the Frank Sinatra School of the Arts that has come into the complex, and it's a growing arts district is what we've created.
So as I said in the beginning, made in New York City, the media and entertainment. I'd like to thank Julie, Hal, and Alan, and I'll see you next week.